Hello everybody, and as you can see in the title down below, what we are going to be talking about are the RPGs of 2020 that you should be looking out for. With that being said, what we are going to do in this video are talk about games that we have definitive release dates for, then we are going to talk about games that are slated to release in 2020, and then we will talk about games that are very likely to release in 2020 but haven't got a year of release date yet. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. And just a quick note, we are not going to be doing any ports or HD remasters. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, releasing on January 17th, is going to be following the story of Dragon Ball Z from the beginning to the end. As from what we have seen, we are going to be starting from the same saga all the way until the Buu saga, and possibly we could get DLC for some Dragon Ball Super stuff later on. But with all of that being said, it's simply just going to be an open world action game where you could play as Goku, Vegeta, Vegito, and many other Dragon Ball Z characters within their universe, and it looks like it is going to be amazing looking. But to be quite honest, I don't know if this game is going to have the best sales, mainly because many people already know the story of Dragon Ball Z like the back of their hand. And as much as I believe that the hardcore fans are going to buy this game, me as a person who would say I'm an above average Dragon Ball Z fan, I'm not going to buy this game upon release. To be quite honest with you, it literally is just telling the story of Dragon Ball Z over again, but the only difference is now, instead of it being a somewhat crappy fighting game, it's going to be in an open world format with some polish to it. So I could see this game going on sale pretty fast depending on the initial sales, but look out for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot in the next couple of weeks. And next we are going to skip over February and jump right into March, and on March 3rd, Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be releasing. This is easily one of the most anticipated and hyped up games of all time, remaking one of the most innovative and influential JRPGs of all time, and you could arguably say that this is the reason why JRPGs are so popular in the West up until today. And with it getting the polish and shine that it deserves, this game looks like it's going to be an easy contender for Game of the Year upon its initial release. But just to keep in mind everybody, this is only part one of the remake. As the developers have stated, with all of their new ideas and things that they want to flesh out and explore within the world of Final Fantasy VII, the games are going to be split into parts. So this could be a two-parter, this could be a three-parter, possibly even four, but the continuing parts of 2, 3, and possibly even 4 shouldn't take that long to come out in comparison to part 1, mainly because they have the access and the battle system and a lot of things in place. So the next couple of games can kind of roll by very fast as they're just developing things, and that whole process is going a lot smoother than the first time. So with all of that being said, on March 3rd, look out for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now Persona 5 The Royale releasing on March 31st. As we know, with the usual release cycle of Persona games, they usually get their base version of the game with like Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5, and then around 2 to 3 years later, they get an upgraded version. In Persona 3's case, we got FES, in Persona 4's case, we got Golden, and in Persona 5 case, we are getting Royale. And these games usually have enough additional content and enough story changes to warrant them being basically a brand new game in a sense. So that is why this game is on this list, even though I said we're not doing HD remasters. We are going to be getting many new characters, new combat options, new choices in the story, and probably the story is going to be overall very different from what you originally experienced within Persona 5. So with that being said, this is one of my favorite games of 2017 and of last decade, and I can't wait to see what changes they make in Persona 5 The Royale to make it an even more enjoyable experience. Now moving into April, we have Cyberpunk 2077, which personally is one of my top 2 most hyped up games of 2020, right up there with Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is going to be an open world RPG developed by CD Projekt Red, developed off of the original game Cyberpunk 2020, which was written and created by Mike Pondsmith. This is simply just going to be somewhat of an adaptation and CD Projekt Red giving their own spin into the world of Cyberpunk. This game looks absolutely amazing, and from what CD Projekt Red is talking about, what they're really trying to get across to us in all of their interviews is that this game is all about choice and replayability and how different the game can be depending on the choices that you make. And they described it simply as, with The Witcher 3, where you made choices that kind of went off into a branch but eventually looped back into the main story, Cyberpunk is like a bush of branches where the choices that you make continue to branch off, intersect, and depart from many different pathways within the game. So your multiple 3 or 4 playthroughs could be vastly different from each other depending on what you do in each playthrough, which in my opinion gives the game great replay value and gives a lot of people a reason to buy the game upon release, because they know they're going to at least get their value out of it by at least being able to play the game 2 to 3 times and have a completely different experience with it if CD Projekt Red is serious about what they are saying when it comes to choices within this game. And I can't wait to check it out myself on April 20th. Next, Bravely Default 2, a game that I love so much, and if you love older Final Fantasy games, specifically 5 because it takes a lot of things from Final Fantasy 5, you'll love this game and this series because it has a job system where you can switch characters around and change what these characters do at any point within the game once you have that specific job. With that being said, I cannot wait to see the upgraded graphics and improvements that have been made from the Bravely Default series moving on to a more powerful console like the Switch. And at this point, all we know about the game is that it's going to be in 2020 and not too much else after that. So with that being said, I can't wait to see when this game comes out. Next, Tales of Arise. This is the first next generation Tales game that we have actually gotten because Tales of Berseria and Zestiria were both PS3 crossover titles. And it looks like while this is the first next generation game that we're getting from the PS3 era, it looks like we're heading into a new era of Tales as well, because with the Tales series, if you followed it, they usually make a type of style of game that they're going to use for the next 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 games, and then they'll usually change it up with a brand new engine or something of that nature. Kind of like the transition from Tales of Vesperia all the way to Tales of Xillia. That was kind of a transition period for the Tales series, and I'm going to assume Tales of Arise is going to be kind of a cross of what we've known of Tales since Tales of Xillia, but also bringing some new elements that are kind of going to define the next era of Tales games. So I can't wait to see what improvements are to be made, because from the small bit of gameplay we have seen, it looks like it is going to be a bit different from what we have seen before in the series. And with Namco Bandai's great characterization of most of their characters within the Tales series, I can't wait to see how these characters grow and progress throughout the story and how we all come to love these characters. So with that being said, I'll be looking out for Tales of Arise sometime in 2020. Next, Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. There really isn't too much to say about this. This is going to be a full-on remake of the original game. It's called Definitive Edition, not this Xenoblade Chronicles HD or remaster. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of added content into this game. As we know, when it came to Xenoblade 2, that game was massively big. I know some of my friends have played that game for 200 hours plus, and I know many stories of people just investing days of their lives into that game. So I can only imagine that Xenoblade Chronicles is going to get that type of treatment, with not only adding stuff into the base game, but also probably getting a very sizable DLC package to go along with that. And I can't wait to try it out with hopefully a brand new Switch in the year of 2020. And if you've been following Atlas, they were brought by Sega around a year ago, I believe, and you could definitely see this in this newest title, which is Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon, which is basically going to be a new era for the Yakuza series, because as we know in Yakuza 6, Kazama Kiryu's time as being the main protagonist of the series is done and over with. And while he will appear in this brand new game, he's not going to be the main character. And the biggest difference between this game and the previous ones is that this game is going to be a turn-based RPG. And if you have seen any of the gameplay, it looks like it's going to be a very fun and intuitive turn-based RPG at that. And just looking from some of the UI designs and things of that nature, I definitely feel like there was some influence from Atlas in making this combat system. Will it tank the series? I really don't know, because as we know, their main demographic is Japan, and to be quite honest, even though I love turn-based RPGs, I know a lot of people don't like them. They just don't feel like they're engaged in the combat enough. But hopefully this system is good enough to keep people engaged and continue the Yakuza hype train over here within the West. And lastly, one game that we have been getting a lot of news and stuff about, and I genuinely can see this game coming out sometime within 2020, is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. This game is essentially based off of the mobile game Grand Blue Fantasy, which is a gacha game, but a pretty fair one at that. I actually played, and it has a pretty great story overall for all of the various characters that the game has to balance. With that being said, this game looks like it's going to have a lot of co-op options within it, where you get to play as multiple characters with your friends. Just from the way the game is set up, it looks like there's going to be endless potential for various combos, for fun and missions to do with your friends, and a great story on top of that if the mobile game is anything to indicate that. Next, Trails of Cold Steel 4 and Trails of Zero and Azure. The Trails series is considered by a lot of people to be one of the most fleshed out worlds in video games, if not the most fleshed out world in all of video games. And recently, over the last couple of years, it has been gaining a lot of popularity over here in the West, especially with the re-releases on PS4 PS4, and the highly rated Trails in the Skies trilogy. And personally, I've even gotten caught on the hype train because I have just purchased Trails in the Sky 1, and I can't wait to see how much this game draws me in with its world building. But Nihon Falcom has been pretty good about localizing their games extremely fast, and I can't see any reason why Trails of Cold Steel 4 won't be coming out sometime near the end of next year or possibly the beginning of 2021. But also, with the addition of Trails of Zero and Azure getting their own remasters for PS4 in Japan, it's only a matter of time before they make their way over here in the West, either through Steam or either through downloadable only content, because I don't see Nihon Falcom making those two games physical releases over here in the States. I would just highly doubt it. And last but not least, this game doesn't really need too much elaboration. A new Nier game. All the signs are pointing to it, all the videos I've done on it, all the videos I've talked about it. There's just nothing else to say about it. We're going to be getting an announcement of some sort for a brand new Nier game. And there's always the possibility that they could announce the game and release it within the same year, seeing as it's been a while since we've heard anything about Yoko Taro working on a game or anything of that nature. But at the very least, we could get an announcement for this game, so look out for that as well. But with all of that being said, let me know down below if I missed any RPGs that you are personally looking forward to within the year of 2020, and if you are, feel free to tell me in the comments down below. But with that being said, you guys, I will see you all in the next one. This is going to be a great year, not only for JRPGs, but RPGs around the world in general, and I can't wait to play them all. But with that being said, I will see you all in the next one.